Broadcast. Welcome to the 17 and a half or 18th episode of the Zaner MarketCast, your one and only spot to keep up with all of the agricultural market news. I am Joe Nikruto, and
I'm Dan Hussey.
Dan Hussey. Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Good, Joe. How about yourself?
Word of the week, derecho rolled through Iowa, Northern Illinois, Indiana, officially calling it a derecho. What is that, derecho 2.0 then? Dan,
a couple of years back,
I was outside waiting for the derecho to arrive, waiting for the tornadoes to arrive, clowning. I was telling friends and family outside, not taking it too seriously, and block and a half away, tornado causing much destruction, loss of life, loss of property, damage. I have a newfound respect for Mother Nature and the idea of tornadoes rolling through my neighborhood. Just luck and the grace of God that my trees and family and stuff wasn't impacted, and thoughts and prayers go out to everybody else who was impacted in my neck of the woods. Dan, did you guys get any derechoing?
Yeah, we had 5 tornadoes in the Chicagoland area.
That's not something that happens.
At O'Hare, which is just west of me. Nothing happened in my little neck of the woods, but just south of us there was one. Yeah, I mean, just kind of wild storm front, right? And what do they call that? What were they calling it? I know it's a derecho, but the whole, I don't know, the weathermen that night were going just absolutely crazy about the straight line wind situation, right?
And absolutely crazy. The sirens are going off, and my friends and family are saying there's a tornado right on top of you, and I'm standing outside looking up, and I'm like, I don't see any tornado, but sure enough, there it was. And so I don't know that I'll be standing outside looking for tornadoes anytime soon after that.
That's so tempting.
Right. I thought, well, if I can't see it, it must not be happening. And it turns out that that's not true. So hope that if you did have some impact, and if you get a chance and you want to let us know in the comments, a lot of folks interested in what may have gotten by with no damage and things that may have been impacted in a negative way. We would be interested to hear about that in an effort to try to get, some sort of count on what the impact could be overall. I don't know, Dan, should we jump right into the numbers after that?
Yeah, I mean, pretty lackluster week for the markets. I mean, Green Day.
We want to make it clear that this is Wednesday. If I'm in Cleveland, this is Wednesday, right?
Correct.
Okay, terrific. Wednesday
July
afternoon.
17th.
Yeah, not Friday, but either way,
midweek.
And it was rather muted trading today. Almost from the get-go, right? Corn opened up. December corn 408 3/4 on the day. Open high of the day 413 1/4. These are just daily numbers, not weekly numbers. Low 408 1/4. Close I saw 411 3/4. That was up 3 even. Funds still short 370,000, estimated to be short 370,000 contracts. That's a big chunk. 10-day moving average, Dan, what do you see? 411.5?
Yeah, something right around there. Maybe, I mean, we closed above it here today is the moral of the story there. Still below the 18-day moving average at 422. 100-day and 55-day at 458 and 463. I mean, that seems like a lifetime away, way up there. The 200-day at 481. Don't even talk about that yet. But really, low participation, low volume in this last couple-day run-up. Big sweeping outside day to the downside there to kind of start things to, set this range.
On Monday.
Yeah, on Monday. We've really gone, I mean, there's not much more I can say to this than okay, we're consolidating for the time being, right? I mean, if we were to push above today's high and that high from Monday and get back to the 18-day and start to reverse, I'd say that there's more of a conversation to be had there about reversing and, maybe going higher, but
with those stops over the high from Monday's open,
right,
or Monday's overnight.
Absolutely. But for the time being, right, I mean, I hate that we've gone up on kind of lower volume, lower participation, saw a good volume push today and, a good close today, but we need to see follow through, right, to have confidence again.
And that first step is if you are short-term short, say you're not a fund, but you're a smaller spec, your stops are above that high from Monday. Maybe you're taking a flyer and your stops are above the 18-day, which is rapidly going to be.
Right. I mean, we could get up to that 422 level.
Yeah.
Like nothing. I mean, and as we should at some point, right? I mean,
because we're so stretched out. We're so stretched out from the longer term moving averages to where we are now that technically you might think that you could see some bounce. Now, whether or not that's going to be a real thing, or that's just going to be some sort of short-term technical correction. Charts.
That's $1 million question.
Yeah,
in and of
fundamentally,
itself right there, right?
What was it? 6 to 7 cargoes out of the Pacific Northwest for beans. I didn't hear anything about. Are we talking beans or are we talking corn? I think
we were corn, but let's move on to beans. Beat that
beans
dead horse.
Open 10.43 and a quarter. High was 10.50 and a half. Low 10.38. Closed today in November beans 10.41. That's down 2 and a quarter. What was dramatic inside day nothing trade. I mean,
yeah,
didn't get out over the highs, didn't get out over the lows. It's almost dramatically unchanged, aggressively unchanged, they might say. Funds, they're short 180,000 contracts, estimated to be short 180,000 contracts. That's a big chunk for beans at this time of the year. Talk that maybe China's buying beans out of the Pacific Northwest, 6 to 7 cargoes, which sort of pales in comparison to what they're doing in South America. Mm-hmm. Big business with Brazil, right? 10-day moving average is 1075.
Yeah, it's whited out on my chart, of course.
18-day 1092.
That's right, and then
50-day, yeah,
153, 160, or excuse me, 1153 and 1160 for the 55 and 100-day. That's way up there. That's where this whole sell-off began. $12, 1201 and a half for that 200-day. So
like how many days ago? Like 15 days ago, right? I mean, it's just been a one-way ride.
A little longer than that, but yeah, it definitely like it felt like we were up at $12 and $12.20 and talking about $13 potentially not too long ago. We're still below that low end of the range that we were holding, for all of the calendar year here. That's that 1120 now area, the lows from February. That's going to be a resistance on the way back up too. Aligning there with that 18-day moving average. If we were to get a substantial rally here, pullback. I mean, $11 to $11.20. There's some technicals to chew through.
Yeah, certainly resistance, but a bit of it from today's close, 1041 back up into the 11s. Just to get to visit that resistance, we still got to travel a lot of distance, and I suppose that all depends on what the funds want to do and whether or not we find some sort of fundamental, right?
Yeah.
How about wheat? September wheat opened 530 and a half. High was 546 and a half. Low 528. Last trade I saw or closed 539 and a quarter in September wheat. That was up 8.5. Big up day for wheat that's been under pressure for a long time. Funds short about 85,000 contracts, which is rather, that could be sizable. Maybe that could get bigger. 10-day moving average 559 and a quarter. 18-day 565 and 3/4. Here again, we're ways away from 50 and 100 and 200 wheat by any measure, technically oversold, I would say.
Yeah. And, the last couple of days unwinding some of that, though, and the RSI, where you could say you're oversold, but definitely oversold in every other way you think about it, right? 55-day, 100-day, and 200-day all cluster between 611 and 633. So kind of a big cluster of technicals. I mean, $1 higher, right? I mean, that's a long ways to go. Getting back to test that 18-day at 565, that you mentioned there a minute ago would be a pretty big, defeat, and it would be right back to that old supportive range, or the old support on wheat that we bounced from back in March. Kind of a natural level if it wanted to continue this, little bit of a rally higher. Wheat can do it quickly when it wants to, but.
And I was going to say that, frankly, the fact that you and I would rather do algebra or, clean a bathroom than sit here and talk about
wheat, wheat
price action in agricultural commodities. I mean, it has just been outright terrible. And that is certainly no scientific indicator that we might be both demoralized with this price action, and many other participants could be demoralized with this price action.
I mean, what do you do, right?
That precedes pretty healthy technical corrections.
And for those at home that may not looking at and doing analysis on charts, that when you're in these downtrends, pull out to the bigger time frame. Look at the dailies, the weeklies. Give yourself a bigger, a picture, a bigger look at what's going on, so that these bigger moves that are very much, we're going through those growing pains of an inflationary market and deflation, and the market pulling back as part of that. How far out that tide goes, right? Take a step back, look at the bigger time frames. Get a better sense for what's going on in the bigger picture sometimes.
And this is not marketing advice, but if you have done very little in the way of selling, maybe do something
before we're below $4 corn, before
sure.
we're below $10 beans. And just let's do some quick algebra for the folks at home. If we're at this 250 to 250, 2.50 to 2.6 corn to bean ratio, if beans, if corn's going to go down to 380, 360, 380 puts current price in November beans down to 955. 360 puts it down to 915. So you're talking about testing that $9 handle if we start to go below 360 corn. And that's if the ratio stays right about where it's been trading at the 255 to 260 area.
I'm gonna go clean the bathroom.
You know what I mean?
As opposed to listen to any more of that.
But you opens the idea that a dollar lower or more on beans is the reality if we go that 20 to 40 cents lower in corn in this current market environment.
And if you're going to be quote unquote diamond hands, you better make sure that you don't have payments coming up and
be cash flow positive,
cash flow
be able to
with all due respect, far be it for me to say, but make sure you're aware of what your cash flow situation is.
So we have a story here about the Bureau of Land Management conservation rules said to be unlawful in a lawsuit from DTN reporting. Our agricultural interests sued by the U.S. Bureau of Land Management, or BLM, on July 12th, challenging a final rule that they say threatens the future of ranching on public lands. The new rule, Ag Group said in a lawsuit filed in the U.S. District Court for District of Wyoming, will make it more difficult for ranchers to play a role in preserving public lands. The rule establishes two new categories of land: use leases and mitigation leases and restoration leases. Two types of leases, right? The mitigation leases and the restoration leases. These are leases for conservation and no more, and they are flatly inconsistent with the statutory scheme that BLM is tasked with implementing, the lawsuit alleges. So a very fancy way of saying that with this rule that BLM has converted a single statute for managing productive use of lands into a one of non-use, prioritizing conservation values above and the exclusion of the exclusively productive activities that FLPMA, the Federal Land Policy Management Act of 1976, has governed for nearly half a century. The lawsuit said that during a public comment period, more than 60 states and national agricultural groups submitted comments on the rule. Generally speaking, ag groups were concerned that the rule would eventually lead to removing grazing on public lands, and federal rangelands generate more than $3 billion annually in ecosystem services, which amounts to more than $20 per acre of land grazed by cattle or sheep. Accounting for tax dollars and grazing fees paid by ranchers, that's a net return of more than $19 on each grazed acre. This new rule aggregates to BLM the power to set aside land for conservation, which Congress has reserved to itself or elsewhere has granted in tightly limited circumstances. The lawsuit argued that the rule is also arbitrary and capricious, in part because it offers virtually no guidance as to when land can or will be set aside for mitigation or restoration. And ACES, areas of critical environmental concern. To top it off, the rule is barred by the Congressional Review Act and was promulgated without complying with the National Environmental Policy Act. I hate lawyers.
Well, just know what they're saying. We're going to set aside some land. If I'm reading this right, we'll set it aside when we want, why we want.
In so many words, we could have just said,
we want.
Right, Congress is, long story short, is Congress has given a one at one time
blank check or no
Thank you.
rule.
The rule that was normally prioritized and withheld by Congress, they're giving outright to this now, I guess, Bureau of Land Management, to the BLM, to do with what they please. So
yeah, do whatever you want. Well, it'll be just fine.
Hooray
for real. Derecho tears through heart of Corn Belt, says Teresa Wells from DTN. Hail up to 2.5 inches in diameter, wind gusts near 100 miles an hour accompanied some of the storms that hit Iowa on Monday. Places across northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, northern Indiana also reported large hail and severe winds as storms advanced east Monday night into early Tuesday morning. These storms came at a time when crops are entering critical stages. Corn is silking and beans are setting pods. Storms that hit Iowa, Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois on Monday can be classified as a derecho. They say a derecho is a fast-moving windstorm where the wind damage must extend more than 240 miles and wind gusts in the damaged path must be at least 58 miles per hour. There it is. A definition of derecho. I did not know that.
There you go.
Right?
I learned something today.
Right. Learn something with us on the Zaner Market Talk. This derecho left thousands of people without power by Tuesday morning while causing extensive tree damage and even some damage to buildings. Some folks in my neck of the woods may not have power back by Friday or even later, Saturday or Sunday. And you think about that, like on balance, a couple days, maybe you get by, but you start talking 5 or 6 days.
Right?
My goodness, those fish sticks that you had.
I hope you had a plan.
Right. National Weather Service out of Quad Cities listed a maximum wind gust near Holy Cross, Iowa, 97 miles an hour. Lena, Illinois, and Aurora, Iowa reported maximum wind gusts of 93 miles an hour and 86 miles per hour, respectively. In addition to the high winds, hail up to 2.5 inches. That's like huge, like tennis ball sized hail was reported across a few towns in Iowa as storms were strengthening Monday afternoon. Rainfall in parts of eastern Iowa approached 1.5 to 2.5 inches, while some areas of southern Wisconsin saw 2 to 3 inches of rain. There was even an isolated area in west central Illinois that reported 4 to 5. I heard 5 to 7 inches of rain from late Monday to Tuesday morning. No matter the stage crops are in, the damaging straight line winds from derechos will always leave behind a swath of damage. In the latest crop progress reports released by the United States Department of Agriculture on July 15th, 62% of corn was silking in Illinois, while Indiana was at 42%. Iowa had 44%. Beans are just getting started with pod setting, as Iowa only had 12% of their bean crop setting pods. Illinois was a bit higher at 28%. Over half the corn crops in states like Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa were rated in good to excellent, or in good, in this article says rated in good condition in the July 15 report. Over half the corn crops in states like Illinois and Indiana and Iowa were rated in good condition in the July 15th report. Make for an interesting report on this coming Monday. Soybeans showed similar to even slightly higher percentages. For example, Illinois reported 64%. Good. Next Monday's report, these percentages may not be as high given the widespread damage caused by the derecho. For many producers across eastern Iowa, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and Indiana, the corn and bean yields may have taken a hit, and it may be difficult for some of these crops to bounce back after the damage. I don't know about you, Dan, but I would love to hear in the comments from the three of you that are listening. Dwayne, tell us what you see in the comments, because that's serious business, I think.
Yeah, stories, pictures. We'd love to hear real on the boots ground, things that are going on in your neck of the woods, right?
Do you think we missed anything?
Social media, no.
Technically, there really wasn't
much
to recover.
Unfortunately, to cover from last week. Sure. We'll see.
I think
into the dog days of summer is what I would say. For
absolutely,
trade.
Dan. I think it's only appropriate that in lieu of the question of the week, we make note that beloved producer Carter is taking the leap, tying the knot, jumping the broomstick. What else do they call it?
I've never heard it called jumping the broomstick.
He is getting married this weekend, and so we want to wish Carter and his lovely wife-to-be congratulations. I'm sure all his friends and family will join and think that that is just the greatest thing in the history of things. So what I thought, Dan, what we would do for the question of the week is, what marriage advice do you have to offer about to be married? And again, to the three folks who are watching, if you want to put some marriage advice in the comments, I'm sure Carter can use all of the help he can get. Dan, what do you say? What's your best?
Learn to suffer in silence, brother.
Suffer in silence.
Suffer in silence.
That's
is the
your
most
best
underrated.
Advice. What if your wife is one of the three?
No, kidding.
We'll edit that out.
Kidding.
Just to save Dan.
Kidding.
Let me make a note of that. Suffer in silence. And so
be each other's best friends, and
that's a good one.
The rest falls into place.
So as I was thinking of this, as I was thinking about doing this and wishing Carter congratulations on his impending nuptials, I thought the idea that I might give him advice would be a lot like, those guys that ski down the giant hills. Like if some guy that was formerly
ski jumpers.
Yeah, big, it's a huge thing. And some guy rolls up in a wheelchair and he's paralyzed from ski jumping. His best advice to you would be learn to enjoy applesauce through a straw. You know what I mean? We don't want to take any advice from the ski jumper that rolls up in the wheelchair. No, I'm just teasing. I think you guys are in for a great adventure. I wish you all the best. And what I would say, and I think Dan was saying the same thing. You don't waste that, because we don't want to. We need it. Yeah, we need. Yeah, we needed that one next week. Here's what I would say: happy wife, happy life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Work hard to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do so she can be happy.
Well, thank you for listening to the Zaner MarketCast today. If you need more because you just can't get enough of us, or you can't, you can always follow us on Facebook at the Zaner Ag Hedge, or Twitter and LinkedIn at the Zaner Group. I got to get our own company names down. Yeah, it's a good one. Got to keep that for next week.
We'll use that next week.
Got to keep that for next week. Anyway, also be sure to check in the Ag Hedge hotline. You can sign up in the links provided below to get a 1-a-day call in with Zaner, our Zaner Ag Hedges, Ted Seifried. He's great. He does a lot of good work on there, giving you the daily analysis in like 5 minutes, right? Everything you need to know about the market in like 5 minutes. You can find the sign up for this in the links provided. Thank you again. Be sure to like, comment, and follow us along to get more. And folks, we will be back with you as price action develops.
Let's just say before we go, if you want to speak with us, that's an easy way to do it. Sign up for that Zaner Ag Hedge hotline, and we'll be sure to reach out. Put your name, your phone number, your email address, and we'll reach out to you as soon as we can. And if you have any questions or there's anything we can do to help you, we'll get to it.
And in the meantime, enjoy the Zaner call-in.
Absolutely.
And more, and hopefully 19, 20, 21, right? This is 18th podcast.
Yeah. 18th episode. See you on number 19. Have a great day,
everybody. Bye.